Secrets with Kenneth Branagh, where he's coming down the stairs to the class and he's like, "Can you see me? Can you all hear me?" Like he in that role is so good.
I love that. I did recently speak to someone for like 30 minutes who told me about they went to wherever the place is in Orlando where they've got the Harry Potter deal, and they specifically traveled to Orlando to do the Harry Potter deal. And they said, "Oh no, it's not overblown. Like we traveled there specifically to do it, and we're thrilled that we did so."
The first time someone's been legitimately excited to be in Orlando.
Yeah, I was like, "Wow, okay."
I had a friend in the orchestra there for a long time at Orlando Phil, and there it's such a different scene because we're so used to playing kind of these very diverse, like we want the masterworks. They are just cranking out Disney on Ice. Like it's almost like the Vegas guys.
Oh my gosh. Hello, Bob. Okay, everyone is saying they can see and hear us. Good day to Maestro. Oh, I was like, Ted, that word separated itself. To Ben, welcome. Yes, yes, yes. My main concern with the first 5 minutes, aside from welcoming all of you lovely people into, I was going to say a fireside conversation, but yeah, that it should.
I had
You
that
know, I
same
do have a
phrase.
dream of like getting a fireplace and
Yeah,
and having it like the fireside conversation
yeah.
weekly. And probably the first step is that I should not be living in Texas to make that happen, but
A
no worries.
Dickensian Gong
Ben, what do you
school
think?
is
You are in Colorado, so you could do it.
yeah, Dickensian Gong school is like right on brand. I would love that.
I love it too. I do a side note, I've often every year when they've got those you know how they've got the fireplace channels now around like the holidays where you can
Yeah,
just like watch a fire? And
yeah,
then there's been like spin-offs of that where you'll have like Nick Offerman like drinking scotch for 3 hours in front of a fire.
yeah.
Um, a vision that I've had for a couple of years is like sitting in front of a fire and the occasional invitation of a singing bowl or a gong, but mostly just sitting there with the fire. And maybe that's a 2025 project.
There we go. I
Yeah.
like it actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
The bunker fireplace.
I do too. Yes, I do like watching the Fireplace Channel. It's one of my favorite movies. Well, welcome everyone. We're just getting some kind of good to see you, light chit chat conversation. And so, can we say poolside instead? I think Sylvia said that poolside instead of fireside. We could alternate.
I
Uh,
don't have the coverage, Sylvia. I'm so sorry.
Need to get this gentleman a big sun hat. Welcome all. Okay, so let me set the stage for everyone that is here. So many of us used to seeing each other on Tuesdays at 12 o'clock p.m. Central to hear, well, what we typically hear is a collection of singing bowls. We hear some unauthorized playing of new, yet to be released musical instruments by me, where I go and grab prototypes that Lauren and Stephanie have not authorized, and then I show them to you, and then you email Stephanie and say, I would love to get that. And then Stephanie has to tell you, Frank just has that on a shelf and we don't know anything about it. But today we're not going to do that in particular. So we have a co-host today. Our co-host is the incredible Ben Irons. I always like to make sure we understand the baseline for Ben. And Ben is a professional percussionist, a vibrational sound therapist based out of Boulder, Colorado, trained in the Atma Booty School of Vibrational Therapy, trained hypnotherapist, trained meditator, author, and now open for enrollment tomorrow, the head instructor of the Ohm Store's Gong School. And whoo, I'm getting good at that. This is our third iteration of a conversation, and now I've got it dialed. And so today, in our special iteration of our Tuesday conversation, we are going to have a wide-ranging conversation. And Ben specifically brought to me a couple of really interesting points of discussion on gong playing. And so you can see Ben's got incredible. I think he's surrounded by three gongs right now. I'm surrounded by a couple of gongs, and then I've got like 10 over there that I've been playing all morning. And so we're going to have a bit of a gong centric conversation. Ooh, I wish I had one in my lab. We're going to have a bit of a gong centric conversation today, and it's going to be just in service of Gong School enrollment opening tomorrow. And so we have some really interesting topics to open up today regarding. Well, I'll just leave them until we open them. But Ben specifically said, as I think I already alluded to, Ben said, you know what? We haven't talked about these things that are really interesting regarding learning and playing a gong. And so let's talk about these things. And so we're going to talk about these interesting topics that we haven't really opened up yet. We will offer you the reminders on Gong School. So we will offer you what Gong School is, when it begins, what it will be like to participate in Gong School. We'll give you all of that information again. And then we will honor the baseline of our Tuesdays by announcing not one, but two winners of a handmade singing bowl. So, right, we're gonna diverge and we're going to end by announcing two separate winners of the singing bowls. That will be in like 30 or 40 minutes from now when we're winding down our conversation. There is a reason why we're giving away two, and I will share that with you a little bit later. And so, okay, Ben, why don't we, before we open the kind of the interesting conversations that we haven't spoken about, let's just give all of our listeners up front a reminder about Gong School. So, if you would, I've done so much talking now. Would you please share with us what's going on with Gong School? What is the opportunity available to people to learn in Gong School, and who do you think would be a good fit for Gong School?
Totally. Thank you so much. It's a great question. It's a big question because I think as we're seeing, there is a very diverse population of humans that feel drawn to this instrument from one reason or another. And as I've been reflecting on, what is it that I really love about this instrument, and why do I feel called to teach these courses? I'm not sure I really have an answer for that, other than that it has just all worked out that way and it feels very natural and I feel very at home with these instruments and that's about as good of an answer as I can get. Oh, sorry. However, as we've been building this out, so this is a custom course designed specifically for the Ohm store and as sort of an extension of Sound School.
Yeah,
And we had such solid, incredible feedback, and I think a really rewarding experience with the not only the first cohort, but now the second cohort. We've seen two graduating cohorts so far starting to get their certifications, working primarily with singing bowls, but also some other commonly associated instruments of the sound healing realm, the voice, the recording aspect, those kind of technical things that get
yeah,
really bogged down for people. So this is a separate autonomous presentation, but really leans on a lot of what we've built and seen and noticed the students. It's hard for me to look back sometimes and really see how far I've grown. And in really subtle, minute ways because I wasn't, on this specific trajectory. This is a collision course, literally between two of my kind of paths, just kind of hit at this fork. I was working on wellness because I had almost a level of debilitating performance anxiety at the orchestra. You're at a really high professional competition level of performance and preparation, and like it is an absolute grind. And oof, to try to explain that to the public, I can't even do it justice. Separate from that, then, I was working on all the technical aspects, the musicality, these phrasing, the touch, and all the stuff that my lineage of percussion is known for, and they just collided together. So I'm in a really natural position, and I'm just kind of on this mesa where I'm like, oh, I've got the mallets, I've got the instrument, I'm already doing the breath work, I'm already writing scripts for hypnotherapy, I'm already recording, so it all just kind of came together. So we're tying this package up, whether you have some previous experience. I know for me personally, having being an absolute glutton for as much information as I can get. Um, I really believe in this branch, this tree of knowledge kind of philosophy, where if I find a source that I'm really connected to, I want to know what they were studying. And so I'm always going further and further back. So I end up in these weird realms of like 1950s Russian parapsychology or like Turkish, 1880s mysticism, but it all relates back to this stuff in its own weird way. So whether or not you're a complete beginner and you're like, Gong, tell me more about this Gong. I have dinners with Gong. If that's where you want to come in and start, great. If you're like, I've got too much free time on my hands, great. If you're like, hey, I want to do this full time and I work as a nurse, as a therapist, as a social worker, as someone who does volunteer work with horses or at the hospital or children or whatever it is. Like it's one of the most overwhelming things about this industry is it fits into literally every avenue of human existence. So you're really only limited by your ability to not be I worked with a friend once who said she had two goals in her life, to be omniscient and omnipresent. And those are
Mm,
really our only limitations in this industry. So we can't be everywhere all the time, or we would. But by having more of you in this class, there are more points around the globe that are pumping out this sound and this level of harmonic, just calm energy. And eventually, Golden Dome, we're going to build a golden
yes.
dome of sound around this globe. And then
Yes.
that is I want our core vibration of the planet to be this vibration. Like, so,
I Yes, I love it. And so something that I wanted to bring up regarding this is again, I've been kind of like saying this because I'm Ben's biggest fan or one of them, although we get many sound school participants and alumni and graduates messaging us about how much they appreciate Ben's perspective on things. But something that I wanted to bring up is regarding choice of teachers. And so, what you have seen perhaps in sound school, and now what you're seeing in gong school, is that I'm not the teacher in either of these two things. And so, in sound school, you're seeing people like Jonathan Adams, like Ben Irons, who we have with us here, like Lynn Stuker, like Jen Vu, like Dinesh Joseph as a guest, right? We're seeing all of these people. And then in Gong School, of course, we're seeing Ben and friends who we haven't publicly announced yet. And at this point, I'm kind of wondering um, why I keep waiting, but I'm like, I haven't specifically asked them for permission to say to say their names yet. And so that's kind of why I keep waiting. Do you
oh,
know?
I think we're good.
Yeah, would you like to introduce them then?
I
This is
would
a
love
great
to.
opportunity. Yeah,
Sure,
please.
sure. So we one of the questions that came up was, we could have just this talking head at you the whole time. And believe me, I could talk about these instruments for a long time. And one cool thing, just to bridge off of what you've just said, Frank, is that I'm not also the instructor. Well, I'm the instructor, but I'm not the teacher. This is the teacher.
Mm,
So we're a lot of this is based off of what I'm getting or what we're responding to. It's a collaboration. So
yeah.
your teacher and the lessons you get will be drastically different than what I'm getting and someone else in the class. But by all of us working together, we can kind of share some common ground. But we recognize that it's important to bring in a little bit of diversity. One of the not challenges, but one of the okay, let's say challenges that I see in this industry is it's really dogmatic. And
Yeah.
a lot of that is based off of lineage, and a lot of that is because the experts are few and far between. So you really get caught in these really broad kind of columns of playing essentially. But
Yeah.
in order to break that up a little bit, and I wonder about this. So last week we had talked about like, oh, if you're called to this practice, but you don't really want to like be out on a stage or live or doing these things and it's for you. I am so curious about these players who are like, you know, uh, maybe there's a sense like extremely isolated, right? Like whether it's a mental kind of illness that causes this, a traumatic thing, if a personality quirk, if they're just literally, I don't want to be around other humans. But I know that somewhere tucked up in some room is some absolute genius on this instrument that is never going to be accessible to us to share. It's like the Bobby
Yes.
Fischer of Gong. And I want
Yes.
to know where
Well,
those people are. So anyway, if that is one of your outlets, please enroll because I would love to connect with you too. Okay,
if you're
that said,
Bobby Fischer of Gongs, then we welcome you to join us.
please, I want so badly to hear your perspective. So to that end, then I really sat down and thought about like, well, first of all, who do I trust to kind of help disseminate appropriate, skillful information with these instruments and not like undue practices, right? And so
Yeah.
what I appreciate about I reached out to two practitioners who I consider are really phenomenal in their own realms and are totally different from the way that I approach this instrument and even philosophically different. So first is a dragonfly artist named Douglas Cardwell. Douglas runs Lotus Sound Bath. He's based in Albuquerque. He's a absolute peacock of a wonderful human. He is so much charisma and compassion and enthusiasm. He's a black man, you know, so it's just like having that level of diversity is really cool because there's a lot of white faces doing this stuff. And that's out of our control, but we can try to honor where we do see diversity. So I wanted to bring in first someone who wasn't white, and second someone who wasn't male. So it really narrows your choices down quite quickly. But Douglas is an incredible musician, and he and I have gigged together at the New Mexico Philharmonic as well as working on these instruments called gamelan. We did a version in Albuquerque last year with American gamelan. So there's a tradition of Southeast Asian percussion expression with gongs, primarily nipple gongs, but in this case, it was a adapted sort of modern contemporary American
Oh,
instrument. So anyway, his background is incredibly diverse. He does a lot of body mechanics and he does this whole energetic school. I wish I knew more about like the specific energetic training that he did, but it was in British Columbia and he's a phenomenal practitioner. I cannot wait for you to meet him because everyone is going to swoon immediately. Um, then the second practitioner is Dr. Jane Wells, who's from British Columbia. She has a part-time residence in Mexico as well. So Jane does a lot more with like psychedelics and gong,
mm,
PTSD and gong. She's got this book on gong meditation, like, and she prescribes more to the like planetary and Schumann frequencies and things. I
yeah.
don't really prescribe to those philosophies, but she has her own reasons for getting into that, and she's doing quite well. And I really like her playing. She's a very sensitive player, and to have like a woman presence on the instrument too, that's really commanding but not overbearing is beautiful. And so just to see these different expressions of just humanism. They're
Yeah.
both extremely compassionate. They're both very aware. They're confident, but they're collaborative. It's just guys are in for quite a treat.
That's an incredible introduction. Thank you for that, Ben. And I think something to put in that is like an underlying idea and vision behind educational opportunities that you have through the Ohm store is you just heard Ben say, um, paraphrasing, Ben didn't go looking for people who would nod their heads yes and say everything that you think about playing the gong and these instruments is like exactly what I think about playing the instruments. And so this is a part of gong school. It's a part of sound school, and what I hope is that it's a part of the philosophy and information and education that you get from me and from Lauren and from Stephanie. And our ideas here are that with Sound School and with Gong School, what we didn't do is get a bunch of wonderful, expert, heart centered, compassionate teachers together and say, here's the plan. You're all going to agree with this. And then we're gonna like say this to the students as a unified front. We never had those conversations. In every conversation that we had with one or more teachers, our idea is you share what's true and sincere and earnest for you, and you never have to double check with whether or not that is like the same idea that another teacher or that myself or Lauren or Stephanie has. Likewise with what Ben just shared. Our aim is to showcase powerful, unique, educated experts and allow them to express what they authentically and sincerely believe. And there is no check on that. We simply want the information to be available to you because you are ultimately deserving of a variety of viewpoints so that you can take what works for you and utilize that to propel yourself forward. And so, Ben, I'm just like, I'm so glad that you brought that up. The other thing that I should mention that we've um, has become a reoccurring theme in this now our third conversation with Ben is the the people that you learn from is crucially important, particularly when they're non-dogmatic. And so there's a book by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers. And essentially Malcolm Gladwell did this study of like why are incredible performers so incredible at performing? And one of the threads that I always remember, it's like, yes, you know, Tiger Woods and Venus and Serena Williams were like phenoms and blah, 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 blah. But it also happens that their fathers or their early life coaches were savants in terms of creating structured learning and evolution process, right? So it's like, yes, Tiger Woods was incredible and I think was on like the Johnny Carson show when he was like 5 years old, but his father was also a Green Beret who had this like deep expertise in teaching and unfolding concepts and gave this to Tiger starting when he was like 2 years old, right? So we see this. And so I brought this thread up because there is natural inclination and talent in the physical world. But when we're talking about things like singing bowls and gongs, one of the things that I find so welcoming about it is that unlike playing something like a violin, the practical and technical expertise doesn't necessarily take you 25 years to master. It takes you time to master, but it's a what I like to refer to as a democratic musical instrument. And then anytime I say this on the internet, people are like, uh, thinking that I mean it politically. And of course, I mean it in terms of being widely available to everyone with a low barrier to entry, particularly when you take on Ben's idea of fostering a gong, right? So it's like we could argue, well, it's not exactly a democratic instrument because it might cost you a bunch of money. And that's true. And it's also true that you can foster a gong, as Ben has said, and begin to practice with the instrument for $0. And so this is just another reminder that the people that you learn from are important. And our aim here is to gather just wonderful experts and not necessarily wonderful experts who have aligned opinions. It's wonderful experts, period, who are going to share earnestly and sincerely with you so that you are just exposed to the widest amount of viewpoint and perspective possible. Okay, I said like a lot of stuff about that, Ben, but I really appreciate you introducing our two special guest presenters and guest lecturers, and we're really lucky to have them.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we could finally announce it. And I should have, I appreciate the feedback. I'm barely doing them justice for their professional credits. I mean, you have to go check the backstory. I wasn't prepared to talk about them today, but
No,
yeah, we'll have more
we'll
up for
put
sure. But
information like on the Gong School page, and we'll make sure that you can track them down, look at videos that they've made already, and to become potentially even more psyched that they will be there for us in addition to Ben.
yeah, and I love what you said about it being a democratic instrument. That was something I was reflecting on yesterday, that one of the differences is I kind of reflect on, what's the difference between, instrumentally, musically, between singing bowls and gong. I think gongs are just a lot more universal. Like they're just we're finding them all over the place. They're
Yeah,
easy to source from all over the place now. Historically, that might not have been as true, right? But singing bowls are still kind of obscure. Like, but once you're in that realm, you see them everywhere, right? They're ubiquitous.
totally.
But but the gongs, it's like you could not have any previous experience and go to like a music shop in Buenos Aires and find a gong. And
Yeah,
I'm not sure that that's true about singing bowls, you know. And I
it's
think
not.
there's something to
I've
that that's super
looked.
cool.
It's
Yeah,
hard
there you go. Yeah.
to even the place that we loved in San Antonio is no longer there. So yeah, it's not ubiquitous. And um, I mean, shoot, there was a gong in Downton Abbey. Now that I remember, like their call to dinner was like actually a big gong.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
and
And that
those
would have been accurate of
were
that
old
period.
timey England.
Yeah, that would have been accurate. I mean, that the Victorians and that post-Victorian, they were so obsessed with that Silk Road and imperialism, obviously.
Yeah,
And those instruments, if you didn't have that musical inclination or you were a person of nobility, it would have just been a status symbol. It would have literally just been like the dinner call.
yeah, yeah. I love gongs. And Ben's right, they're all over the place. Out of curiosity, I actually looked on
Hmm.
Amazon this morning. I was like, I wonder what like Amazon has in the world of gongs, the virtual platform, not the forest. And it's like that you could buy like 3-inch table side
Yeah.
gongs, for like $20 all the way up to like it's amazing. Like they literally are available all over the place if you start to look.
You know, the hilarious thing is we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, and I was like, "Oh, remind me to tell you this story." So, about 15 years ago, I was on tour in China. It was my first time there. We were doing 21 cities, sorry, 10 cities in 21 days. It was an incredibly quick moving tour. And it was in winter, so it was super cold. And because we were traveling as a percussionist, I don't, I'm not flying with timpani and drum set and things. Like you have to make arrangements ahead of time with these orchestras and with these venues. Like, hey, can we rent this kind of large equipment? And
Yes.
we were playing a piece by Gershwin called Rhapsody in Blue. Lovely tam tam note in it. I go to the first building, like into the hall, and it's gorgeous. I mean, it's almost brand new out of the box. The entire building is like shiny. And where's the gong? And I'm walking around, I'm trying to find people. Do you have a gong? There's no gong. I'm talking to the stage manager. Did we get a gong? Didn't we rent gongs here? No gong. Okay. Well, I talked to the conductor. Guess what? We don't have it. I'll just play a cymbal or something. I'll sing it, I guess. And you just do what you got to do. We go to the
Yeah.
second city, no gong. Third city, no gong. I did an entire city, like the entire coast, 10 different cities, no gongs in China. Are you kidding me?
Oh gosh.
But of course we weren't playing in Wuhan. We were playing literally everywhere else.
Yeah.
But I go into this like historic district, I think it was in Ningbo, and they had this like 70-inch, tourist trap gong at this like sign at the beginning of the historic district. And I was like,
Yes.
I'm bringing this with us for the rest of the tour because apparently we can't find one. So it's hilarious that we say that they're everywhere except for the places that I need them to be.
Wow. Yes. Except for the places that should have the gongs. That's
Yes,
wild.
we're like, I can't believe that we can't find one here. That is the craziest thing I've like experienced.
Wow. Hmm. That's really interesting. That's an interesting arc there and unexpected too. Hmm.
And it makes you wonder, like, is this just an American expectation? Like, did I pigeonhole this entire thing? Like, are they not actually everywhere? But meanwhile, because it's Christmas, there are Santa Claus posters in every window, for the decorations. And you're like, this is so backward.
Oh my gosh.
You can come
Okay,
here for
so I've
Santa.
got I've got my notes here about how we can talk about some things that people haven't heard um, us have a conversation about yet.
Yeah.
And so I think the first thing that I would like to queue up for you is okay, so we're in this container, we're talking about gongs, people that are listening are considering um, do I care about gongs? Maybe that's where we're actually starting from. Maybe we're not even starting from the idea of like, am I going to join gong school? But we have many people who love singing bowls here, and so maybe they're even thinking like, do I care about gongs yet? And then of course, maybe they've heard you play one last week, and now they're like, okay, I care about gongs. But Ben is speaking about playing gongs in a way that I had never really considered because my general cultural exposure to gongs has been if I've ever seen anyone do anything to it in like a regular place, I just see them, they just give it a big old whack. So maybe we could talk about like why might one require training to play a gong when many of us have been exposed to the big old whack process of playing a gong, and then maybe get further into the minutia of that about like what is good versus bad versus skilled versus unskilled in terms of playing and having a conversation with a gong.
Yeah, totally. It's a great question. So, this is the when you talk about sound baths with like the general public, the muggles, and
Yeah.
you're out and you're like, hey, have you heard of this? Did you see that Kim Kardashian video or whatever? If you want on my website, zenwithben.me, one of the links anytime I find pop culture references like, Kylie Jenner's I don't even know,
A
brunch
gong fan.
yeah, or whatever it was. I try to collect all those stories so we can see like where it is in popular culture. And granted, I have noticed that it's never like Kim Kardashian does it again. It's like it's just a one and done, flash in the pan thing. But
Ah,
I know, but she should get on that. So why was this important? What were we just talking about? Oh, why
About
good or bad and how we approach
good
this.
and bad, yes.
Yeah, so the general public, their feedback when you ask someone like, "What are your impressions of this?" They're like, "Oh, I love it," or they're, "But," or they say, "Oh, I can't do it because of this." And I fall into that second camp. I really struggle with other people's sound baths because it is so unruly. There is
Uh,
no hint of informed technique, control, discipline, trajectory, intention, I would say in some cases. I think the intention is just like make yourself look good. We are a colleague of mine says it great. There are so many people who are great at the marketing side, and they are making their whole career out of packaging sparkling air. And
uh,
that's there's a lot of sparkly air that this thing can
yeah.
manufacture, and it's
Uh,
really easy to pass that off. It's an exceptionally simple instrument, in like it's deceptively easy because it takes no skill to be loud. And so everyone starts there because that is the thing that gets them feeling like they're doing it, right? So it's never when you go to test drive a car, it's not doing 90 on the freeway that's difficult. It's can you do a 3-point turn, and parallel park? Like it's
yeah.
all the little things that take control and understanding. So our training is a progressive training to get you to a place where that when you are needing a full expression of sound, it doesn't feel wild, it's not out of control. You can make the countermeasure maneuvers that you need to in real time to manage that, rather than just like letting this wild stallion buck, so to speak. So I want to be able to like work with it on every level. Again, this is the teacher. I want to know what the teacher says. And if the teacher's always screaming at me, it's really difficult for me to process what those messages are. What is that healing trajectory? What is it that my body needs? I can't get over this wave of sound. So that is, I think, the importance of approaching this instrument. As far as good and bad, we're talking about a mindfulness practice, and we're approaching this through a therapeutic lens primarily. Like I cannot not train you in the percussion side because it would be one a huge disrespect of any of the students in the course to like my goal is not to hold anything back. I'm not going to overwhelm you with things that are like well beyond what you need to know in the moment, but I'm not going to hold things back either. Like I want to help set you up for success. And if you
Yeah.
decide later like I don't need technique, I don't need to practice ever again, that's on you, but all I can do is, show you the door and it's on you to walk through it. Now,
Yeah.
when we talk about framing it as good or bad, that is an ego trap. That starts to set us up in a mindfulness space for judgment and expectation. And we want to avoid that as much as possible.
Yeah.
We're working with consistency and we're working with feedback, but even on our face, with the students that I work with in person, I'll ask them to make an invitation and it doesn't go to plan and they'll like cringe and all these things. It's like, don't do that. One, you're inviting tension in, tense body, tense mind. Two, you're showing your cards because you know more about what you're trying to do than the audience does in that case. So don't give it away. And also, who cares? Like, there's no consequences for this. Like, if it doesn't quite go to plan, it's fine. We're on a long trajectory. But something that my teacher always told us was never throw a note away. And this was in an orchestral setting. Every single note is placed, every single touch on the xylophone, snare drum, cymbals, triangle, whatever it is there with a very specific intention and not on its own, but as it relates to the intention before and after it. And so we have to start to stitch all these things together. These are not isolated points. It's that old Spaceballs joke of like, now it's now. Well, that was then is now, it's now, right? But now we're now. So we want to avoid this like critical, hypercritical framework of good or bad. We're looking for
Yeah.
skillful and less skillful. If you and we're all going to be less skillful for now. If you know your 4 stages of learning, it's uninformed, unconsciously, what is it? Unconsciously incompetent, uh, consciously incompetent, consciously competent, and unconsciously competent, right? So you
Yes.
have to go through. So we're all probably starting, not, well, I'm maybe a little further ahead than you guys, but we're all starting on this kind of consciously incompetent place. Like we know
Yeah.
that we're not where we want to be with this, but we're going to get there slowly and in a progressive
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I like that. And so we talked a little bit about the good versus bad and about nerves. And something that I think is a neat thing to bring up is that we do get people not requesting, asking questions about Will there be a certification granted? And kind of like the culmination. We're always, I think generally we're like, okay, what's the deal here? Like we need something to show for it at the end. And so I would love you to talk about the capstone, but I want to talk just like from my perspective of seeing there's been like about 170, 180 sound school students, and I think maybe there's been 100 capstones that have been submitted. I'm kind of it's like roughly that. But the truth that I want to communicate here, a sizable percentage of people get a little bit blocked about the submission of a capstone project. And if you're coming to us from the perspective of like you don't know sound school, you don't understand what our capstone project is, the purpose of our capstone project is the culmination of, in this case, our 7 week journey where we can actualize the intellectual and technical things that we've learned over that period of time and put them all together in a package that demonstrates not good, bad, right, wrong, but simply where we currently are at a place in time in terms of demonstrating what we've come to understand about using and playing our instrument, in this case, gongs. And so something that I wanted to say before maybe Ben can talk a little bit more about like certification and capstone and like what we're building to and whether or not that's like really the goal in any case. I wanted to just share as adults, so like we're all adults. I think Ben and I are pretty much like exactly the same age. So we're like, we're closer maybe to 60 than like 18 now, or like right in on the borderline. But what I'm saying is as adults, as compared to um being in school, or maybe like competing for jobs when we're younger, or kind of like getting our footing into the world, we may be at a place where we're not at our edge all of the time. We may be parents or caretakers or in careers that we've been in for a long time. We may be pursuing hobbies or with circles of friends, and we may experience a general level of comfort in our life where we're no longer like at the edge, learning calculus, learning a new physical skill, learning a new musical skill, learning a new language, whatever. The point that I want to illustrate here is that as adults of various ages and at various stages of maturity, we're all adults. And something that I've observed is that it can feel comfortable to back away from an edge where we might be judged. And it's something that we are not yet competent in. And it just frankly can be really scary to not be a trained musician. And then we just heard Ben. Ben has been behind percussive instruments for 30 years and played all over the world with some of the best players, musicians in the world. And I, Frank Moserino, am going to go 7 weeks and then send him a 20-minute recording of me playing the gong. It's almost shockingly scary if I boil it down in that simple way. But the truth is that when we go to our edge of this really maybe uncomfortable and unfamiliar place of, yeah, I'm going to take a 7 week course and I'm going to submit a recording of myself to a professional musician who has been playing instruments like these for 30 years. And I'm going to allow him to see me fully and to give me feedback. Although we know it will be kind and compassionate, still allow myself to receive feedback from someone who is generously 2 steps ahead. But maybe if we're comparing Ben to me, for example, 10 steps ahead in the percussive world. And so, what I just wanted to kind of offer for everyone to consider is, yeah, it's scary. And yeah, there's lots of reasons to say, no, that's not for me. Or yeah, there's lots of reasons to join Gong School, but then at the end kind of feel like, no, I don't really want to be judged by Ben because that's like really an edge that I don't want to do. And so what I wanted to share with you is In my adult experience, the electricity of aliveness has been like at that boundary of like, I'm really scared. This is like a new skill for me. I'm at that special place of like, I'm not competent yet, but I'm like doing my best. And now I'll have to let someone else see and offer me feedback on that. And it's so scary. And then on the other side of that, as we've seen with so many of our capstone submissions in Sound School, is just something new. A new way to look at your self identity, of course, a new practical and technical skill, a new opportunity for service in the world, if that's what you feel called to use these instruments for. And so, okay, beyond my like really hyped up idea about like our evolution as an adults by being at kind of an edge of a zone of comfort, Ben, would you just talk a little bit about like this capstone project and like what's interesting or important about it to you and what will it be like for students and maybe just say something about that.
Yeah, so the capstone's in our final week, right? So it's sort of like your informal final exam. It's like your in project, right? So we've been talking for 6 weeks at that point. We've been meeting, you've been doing homework. There are exercises, both meditations, technical exercises, and wellness sort of things built into the curriculum so that it is truly progressive. So that by the time we get to that capstone, it shouldn't be like, oh my God, 20 minutes today. When I think about my elementary, not elementary, but like middle school band, they used to give us these carbon copies of practice logs, and they would block it out, and I'd forge my parents' name every time. But basically, the goal was to practice 15 minutes a day, and I think most of the days it was like we did 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And looking back now at that, like, my graduate work was like 8, 12 hours a day in the practice room. So 5 minutes is like a heartbeat by comparison. But I recognize too, like I'm also taking this summer Tai Chi class and I'm supposed to practice every day and I never do. So, like, yeah, where do you think where yeah, 5 minutes, but you have to make those 5 minutes happen. So I
Yeah.
love that it's built into this instrument because it's very simple to get 5 minutes a day just to sit and play. I mean, if you play one nice soft invitation and let this gong totally decay, that's almost 2 minutes of time. So when we think about a capstone at 20 minutes, if you are really discerning and disciplined about it, it's really only like 10 invitations on the gong. Like it's not that big of a deal. But I don't want to tell you how to feel about that. So we've got this capstone, and my goal is to help get you to a place where if you wanted to be out in the world doing this and in service or for part of your vocation or whatever it is, the typical format that I see for people, and really that we know from studies, is that after 20 minutes to 45 minutes, you're really not seeing that huge of a dividend as well as mindful regulation in our polyvagal system after that point. So
Mhm.
while I appreciate when people do these overnight like solstice concerts and things, it's really from a health perspective, it's a novelty. But realistically, as a skill, we want to get you to a place where you could sit comfortably for 45 minutes with people in front of you or around you or on a live presentation and educate or talk about your process or why you're so passionate about this. And if the bowls took up 20 minutes of that, then this is another 20. And then your voice, intro, and outro get you to your, the last 5 minutes. So it's all sort of built in a large scale arc like that. The capstone, I've got the parameters. So basically, it's a 20-minute original creation. I would love to hear your voice at some point, whether it's a mantra, an affirmation, a poem, just something you're reading to close it out. A little guided component. I last week when I led, it was just a body scan, and I had a hypnotic pulsing on the gong that was at a very specific tempo of 70 beats per minute, and I have my own tricks for locking that in internally. And that is where like 70 beats per minute is where we want our heart rate at in a healthy place. So I'm using entrainment in a really informed way to like, and it's totally subtle. Like you would have no clue unless I told you that that was part of my plan, that that was happening behind the scenes. And so it's all these little things to just kind of help structure and prop you up through that process. Now, the other piece of this, like we talked about, are the nerves. Well, I get nervous too. Like I said, I had like almost debilitating performance anxiety. It is extremely vulnerable to get up there. It's not even your voice, like it's your craft. It's a not. It's so much more subtle and nuanced than that. And however, here's what I'd love to encourage you with: you are a unique person. Your touch will be unique. Your
Mhm.
sound from that touch is unique. What's really cool is if as a music student when I was in college, and you're around the same kind of studio all day every day, you can pick people out by the sound. Like you know who's practicing by that sound. I can tell other people's studios from in like Becca Laredo, Sonic Mastery System. On Instagram, I can tell her studios or her students by sound because of the way that they approach in a good way. Amazing studio. And so I get nervous too about these things, and it does take time. And I love what Frank said. And so, a common, adage in the meditation realm is fear is excitement without the breath. So if you
Uh,
get scared, just take a breath, invite it back in, drop your shoulders. Like you should feel a little bit scared. Like that's your chance to be courageous. You don't get a chance to be bold if you don't feel that fear first. So there is a sense of sort of a personal journey that has to happen. And so much of the technique that we're building into this is so that when you get into these places when you're recording, it's very, very difficult for the mind to hold technique and expression simultaneously. So we really try to separate train and trust. So we have all these exercises and practice throughout the week where you're training so that when you get to your recording part, you can just enjoy yourself. It's just time to take that snapshot and trust. You're out of the driving range, you're out of the gym, you're off the meditation cushion. You just get to play now. But you have the built-in like training underneath to help sculpt that intuition so that if the container shifts for any reason, you can shift with it. And it's not just like, well, better play louder now. The way that it typically is. But oh, I should mention too. So some quick things if you're feeling nervous.
yes.
The first, just take a moment to breathe. So when in doubt, do less. Again, don't throw a note away, never throw a note away. So on this instrument, that just means if you go to invite and you don't know what's going to happen, that's a missed opportunity. You could have attached an intention, you could have brought in a certain energy or certain color. Sometimes we hear sounds in our mind that don't need to come out. Sometimes we keep them for ourselves. There's like this sort of cosmic sound that doesn't need to be shared. Sometimes we can keep a little bit of that close, and it's hard to filter that out if you're just wailing on the thing. Like you got to give
Yeah.
it space to breathe. Another quick trick that you can do from a biofeedback perspective is rub your lips. So you see people
Oh,
when they're nervous, they're always pulling out their mouth. So this
yeah.
this is a as indelicate as it is, it's a physical tie back to our breastfeeding days. So this releases oxytocin. So when we
Oh,
this bonding, this neurochemical. So when we're stressed out, if you need, just rub your lips for a couple minutes, like softly, gently. Don't grind on them, but just
yeah.
yeah, don't think of mom, but like, just relax. Like, but that it releases oxytocin. And so some form of like alternate nostril breathing. You can rub your lips or just, tapping is really good if you know your emotional freedom technique. I really
Yeah.
love tapping. The chest is one of my favorites. I'll do a lot of chest tapping and playing.
Mm.
So there are things that you can do, and it's totally fine. Give yourself permission to do that. But really, the only way to get over the fear of being visible is to be visible. And I'm kind of talking to myself here, someone who's like rarely leaves his home and doesn't really use social media. But like, but at some point you just have to be available. You are so unique and these instruments are so unique. And so I love listening to other people's singing bowls, whether they're like a quality bowl or not, because there isn't another bowl like that. Like, I want to hear your bowl, man. What's your bowl sound like? Like, half the
Yeah.
time I don't want to record, but if I don't, I'm depriving people the opportunity to hear these instruments. And then we run this sort of line of like dragon hoarding, these museums around the globe that have these massive archives in their basements full of masterworks that are just on an inventory list. Humans will never see them. And that's like the saddest thing about our artistry, this like greed that we have, this dragon hoarding. And so, yeah, if you can share, that's more harmony that we're putting out too. And that is like ultimately my goal with this whole practice.
Yeah, it's really, I just have to say back to you, it's really impactful and touching to hear, to consider the idea that no one can play like us. And so our unique approach and touch, even if it's still currently unskilled, is a gift to the morphic resonance, right? The field where all have come before and will come in the future. We're entering in by inviting an instrument like this to sing. It's really touching for me to just think that no matter our skill level, our unique touch is not replicable completely, and that we could potentially pick ourselves out of a lineup. That's like a special thing um, to consider. I think that no matter where we are on like a skill curve, we have a unique contribution to offer.
Yeah, I can't remember if I told this story. I've been recording the coursework, so
Yeah.
the modules are coming out. So I can't remember if I had said this in a module or if on the call last week, but there's this great story again from the classical realm, and I'm sorry I keep going that way, but those are just the stories that come to mind. American composer George Gershwin really admired French composer Maurice Ravel and really wanted to go and study with him and learn about like how he was composing. And Gershwin was already cranking out music at this point. And it was so just kind of like enamored with like trying to figure out like how do I replicate this? How do I create these colors and like do the things you do? And Ravel told him like, why would you come here to be a second-rate Ravel when you can be a first-rate Gershwin? And it's like, yeah, just be you, man. Like you are plenty. You do enough, you have enough, you are enough. These are root chakra affirmations. And we
Yeah.
have to, and so we're making sure that this is folded in to this coursework and this trajectory because my training includes mental coaching to help feel empowered. And honestly, if we're working in a yogic setting, oh, and I didn't mention that, so we're trying to get whether or not you choose to do this after the capstone is totally on you, but part of the capstone is to get this formulated into kind of one of two tracks, either a focused kind of energizing track or a rejuvenating relaxation sort of track, your yoga nidra. So your AM or your PM sort of offerings of these things. And so that's another component. So you have to, I wanted to hear your voice, 20 minutes original creation, uh, at least two different colors. So whether it's a hard mallet and a soft mallet, a mallet and a flumi, whatever that means to you. Again, dealer's choice. I would love to hear some sort of drone or roll because we're going to talk about that. I'm going to teach muffling and dampening, but I might not hear or notice that on the recording so much. But if you want to employ that too. So those are all kind of the parameters, and that's a lot of leeway. But there's also things like I'm going to talk about how to approach your scripts, how to use the voice. There are meditations every week. There are affirmations every week. So I'm not just dropping you into the deep end. We had this dog when I was in college that we went to a family's house for the holidays and they had a pool and he'd never been around the pool. And we were worried if we weren't watching, he'd fall in. Like, how do we know what to do? And so I was like, well, we got to do it. And so like, picked up the dog and dropped him into the deep end and he sank like a stone. And I was like, well, I'm gonna have to jump in and get this dog. And I'm wearing like a suit because I'm wearing my meeting my girlfriend's family, for like the first time or whatever. So he came up, which was fine. I didn't have to jump in. She's calling for him at the shallow end, like, come, come, come this way. And I'm just kind of, he is locked dead eye on me, like livid that this just happened. And he's at the deep end and he figures out to put his paws up and he like yanks, he's a like American Staffordshire mix,
Oh yeah.
yanks himself, very strong dog, out of the pool. And he's just staring at me. He's not even like wiping off. It's just like daggers for 3 minutes. And I was like, well, at least if he gets in, he can get out. But I've learned my lesson and we're not going to do that to you. We are going to get you into the shallow end, and then you can paddle out a little bit and then come back.
Yes. Okay. And so there has been, I just want to address this because Marianne dropped this question in. I apologize, by the way, if there's been a question that you've put into the chat and we haven't addressed it. You can just like let us know, like email us hello@theomstore.co. Gong school at theomstore.co. I don't know if I'm making it more useful or less useful by creating specialized email addresses like that, but you know how to get in touch with us. We're here for you. If there has been a question that's gone by and you're like, oh, dude, Frank and Ben didn't, like speak about this thing, get in touch with us and we'll be on an email with you and Steph, me and you will be on the phone. We'll just take care of you. And so with that as a preference, like we never leave a question behind. We've got your back about any of this stuff. Marianne asked a question that I think is on a lot of people's minds, and Marianne's question was, I can't find it anymore, but it was something to the effect of, "Are we going to have to become uh, like technical audio-visual recording specialists in order to complete this capstone?" So, what's your idea on this? How are we? Yeah.
No, so obviously the better you're able to capture your audio, the easier it is to get and receive feedback. However, I am very aware that this is an overwhelming component. It's overwhelming for me.
Yeah.
Like I really, and maybe I'm a purist, maybe I'm lazy, maybe it's all of the above. Like I really, I also really struggle with the sound component, and I'm a single person operator on every level. So I have to choose between groceries and a Neumann mic, and it's like it's not a choice. I'm gonna, and we're almost at that point. Like eggs are almost as much as a good microphone. So, so no,
And eggs.
I think there are resources for that. I can refer you out. And
Yeah.
then of course our dear friend Bob, I know it might be open to maybe some consultation.
Bob is going to be joining us in Gong School. He and
Hey,
I
there
had
we go.
a conversation last night. And so, yes, I think maybe we can create some sort of like a audio visual, like beyond a phone, like 101. Like if you want to take it a little bit further than just like recording on your phone, do this. But just to like Marianne, for you specifically and anyone else, we are focused on playing your gong, and playing it for yourself and for future people in physical spaces. The emphasis in this particular evolution of learning is not about, I was going to say fooling with, but I don't want to diminish it. It's just we're not focusing on like multi microphone, the best audio visual setups. Ben's idea, sorry to just like talk on your behalf. I just want people to feel comfortable knowing that becoming an audio visual technical master is not a core part of this curriculum. Our aim is that you can play the gong for yourself and for people in physical spaces, and so that's what we're going to try and get across to you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I recognize there are probably maybe a handful of people who are coming who aren't from sound school, and maybe they're just interested in the gong side. They didn't
Yeah.
see that whole other thing. I can refer you to some outside referrals, recommendations, consultations, and things, some texts and whatnot. But no, and maybe they're coming to us with like, oh God, I've been playing gong, and I hope I know how to record it. Yeah, it's just everyone's situation is so unique that
Yeah.
I'm really hesitant to like tell you how to set all this up. And it's probably going to evolve. And I've even switched out. I've basically locked into where I'm recording this whole module, and I keep switching out microphones every day because I'm still not happy with what I'm doing. So it's that I think is also part of you have to give yourself permission with everything else. Like as you're learning mallets and your types of gongs and your stands and all the touch stuff that we're going to be talking about, like I'm walking a line very carefully of like I'm making sure that there's so much information that justifies a 7 week course, but isn't also completely overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I think if I can say this, we're doing a nice job of it. As I look at the syllabus, it's like this is a substantial course, but really for anyone as a total beginner up to like your 301 level.
Yeah.
You will certainly be able to walk away feeling very confident to select an instrument, set it up, know how to approach it, know energetically how to start sculpting some things, how to get some specialty sounds, how to keep it clean and care for it. And then when you're done at the end of the day, that's if that's all you want to do with it, that's great. And if you want to keep going, then I will talk about what the next steps are. So,
Yeah.
there are other teachers, there are other courses, there are other texts and things like that. The Gong Summit with Mike Tamburo is happening right now, and I think that's what they call it.
Really?
Yeah, they're in Spain right now, in Italy or wherever they were. They were just at
I
Grada
think they were in
Sonora.
it. Were they in Italy? I
Yeah, they
can't
were
remember.
at Grada Sonora, but I think
Yeah.
they
Yeah. Yeah.
started in Spain and went. I don't know. I don't track where Mike's going.
I
I guess
yeah,
I leave. I guess.
I just watched like a bunch of videos on Instagram of Mike playing recently, where I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. So to wrap that point up with a bow, you do not need to do anything for your capstone other than record with your phone or your computer. Our expectation is not the creation of a high fidelity recording. Our expectation is ticking the boxes that Ben has shared about what's to be what there is to submit in the capstone. And I will say that an iPhone in particular, that's just the lens that I'm looking through, not to have like a conversation around what phone is best. I just have the phone I have. And so it's is it fantastic in terms of like the fidelity and capturing what's going on with the musical instrument? It's not fantastic, but in my estimation, it's like pretty good. Like, I really get the idea of the instrument when I hear it recorded on a phone. Could we do better? Could we spend like a lot of time? Could we spend 7 weeks learning how to capture, everything that a gong can offer via like recording equipment? We could spend 7 weeks doing that, but we're not. We're gonna go for like, what does it, you put this thing in a stand, boom, you go, and we're wanting to train and practice for real world playing. And if you find yourself in the perspective of, I actually want to learn how to become a master of capturing the gong via recording, that's something that is not going to be part of the core curriculum, but we have resources that we can set you on the track to consume if that's something that you want to explore. So really what I want to say is it's not the focus, but also if you're like, oh, I'm really interested in this, we're not going to leave you hanging. We'll point you in a direction so that you're not just stuck wondering what to do.
Yeah, but it won't be. We noticed that there was that feedback in the first kind of cohorts from Sound School that it was a lot of pressure around that, and I
That's
get
great.
it. It's really difficult. So one of those stories, I don't know if we have time for this, but basically these
Please.
instruments are so difficult to record because of how just transparent and vulnerable they can be. So Rain Gray, who runs I Singing Bowls, was telling me the story of that at Warner Brothers in the '80s. They were trying to record, and they had rented out the studio and the guys were like it's absolutely soundproof, and then like the first Ninja Kawasaki went by motorcycle and they're like nope, we can hear that. So they had to go to yet another studio, and at a certain point when you're investing in like $5,000 microphones that are going to catch every little sound, these guys, because of how soft and subtle these instruments were, had to strip down to their underwear because you could hear all of the clothing, all of the mallets, everything. And
Oh,
and so at a certain point, it's like, do you want to invest in $5,000 micro? There's a pool next door. There's construction. There's a plane overhead all the time. There's always animals or neighbors, and it's like we're on a really noisy planet. So we also have to kind of be realistic with, yes, do we want high fidelity sound? Absolutely. Are we on a noisy planet? Yeah, and it's going to grab all of that if we try to record those things. But I think it's also really beautiful that the in order to try to capture its voice so purely, it requires us to be naked and vulnerable. And there's something really beautiful about that.
yes, yes. Ben, I just want to, so we have, by the way, I'm going to wrap up here in 4 minutes. I know I'm keeping everyone long.
Oh
Um,
no.
and we're going to announce the two winners, but I've seen a reoccurring question come in, and so we should talk about this.
Let's hear
First
it.
off, there's like a 10 to 20 minute video about like what gong we're recommending, or like not specific gong, but like the profile of like if you'd like to be in gong school, this is the profile of gong that you might consider.
Yeah.
Um, so Ben, if you just wanted to give like a quick primer on that, just because I think maybe like 4 or 5 people have answered, just know I'm gonna put a video up on like there's gonna be a video up, and I think it's gonna be up tomorrow morning when Gong School is opened. So the first thing that I just want to make sure you know is like you don't have to go find a gong and then enroll in Gong School. Enroll in Gong School. We have education around like how you can choose a gong. So you don't have to be overly concerned with like, I don't have a gong, what should I do? There's plenty of time. Gong school doesn't even begin until July 14th. And you don't actually require a gong until I think maybe we said like the 21st or something. So would you just do like again, I know you just like recorded these videos, like a 2 minute primer on like how to think about gongs, if
Yeah.
if people are considering joining Gong School, and then know everyone, we've got the video for you.
Yeah, while it's a big world like we talked about, and there are many different sizes and styles, primarily what you have to consider is like the region, kind of that is more stylistic. Like this is indicative of a Wuhan style chow from southern China, versus the paiste behind me is more of a nickel silver or nickel brass as they call it from Europe. So the alloy is a big indicator of like the type of sound that you're going to get, and we're going to talk about all of those things in school. Um, I would not recommend a nipple gong or a stroke boss or a button gong, as they're called, for this class. They're lovely instruments, but you're going to find some innate challenges with how the instrument speaks the techniques that we're trying to learn do not express themselves well on those instruments. They're lovely, but if you're purchasing, I wouldn't start there for this. I would say anywhere between a 24-inch and a 34-inch is reasonable in diameter. And this chow style, a wind gong, which is like this one behind me, but fully lathed, or even this kind of solar flare. Or if you're drawn to these silver nickel instruments, these are really popular. So these are kind of the places to start looking. You can also borrow or foster an instrument. I would recommend reaching out to in your local area. There's probably a high school band program, a community orchestra program, a community college program. There might be yoga studios. There are probably more gongs that in your vicinity than you're aware of.
Yeah.
And I would reach out if you're nervous, even if you're not sure where to begin as far as buying and you just kind of want to start. Reach out to the local professors and just say, hey, is there an instrument I could borrow? I can replace the cord for you. I'll check on the stands. I'll trade you for a yoga session or I'll do vibrational therapy. Like I like those types of systems. And honestly, the Western players, like classical percussionists, they need to know that this stuff is happening too. So many of my peers have no clue that this is going on. I was just a friend of mine from San Diego Symphony was just here. And he was like, "Oh, you guys use gongs? Like outside, huh? Like
Oh,
it's
wow.
totally for them, they don't know. So it's absolutely bizarre that we're operating completely autonomously from one another. I would love to see more collaboration. So I hope that helps clarify.
Yeah, yeah.
If you get into your first week and you're like, I don't have anything, we can start on a pillow. It's really okay because it's going to be about the mechanics. Ultimately, we're going to get into the touch part of it. And so hearing protection, I think we're going to post a video I've made of all the school supplies. So it's like, here are things that I would recommend. Here are some additional things you might consider. But
Yeah.
but the
Just
cost.
like, will you mention the special thing we're doing with Dinesh? I haven't said that to anyone, but we
Oh,
should
totally. Yeah, so just to
maybe
make life
clarify.
easier, so I the course is all designed around one general or soft mallet, one harder or articulate mallet, and one pair of rollers. Now, if you get beyond that, that's excellent, but this is really our beginning palette. These are our primary colors, like blue, yellow, red, whatever.
Yeah.
So just to make life easy, because I'm a Dragonfly artist and I designed mallets specifically for this situation and these instruments and teaching on it, we reached out and made a very easy bundle for with Dragonfly where you go through the Ohm Store site and it's Gong School mallet bundle and you get one RSMS, the my go-to teaching mallet that I designed specifically for students of Gong in a therapeutic setting, one medium hard, so Resonance Series medium hard, and a pair of the baby bucket rollers. And these are incredibly versatile tools. So very small and light.
Yeah.
This will get you through the entire coursework slash career. These are 98% of the time I'm playing at the instrument. It's with this combination of mallets. And you don't have to think about it. You just go and click and then it comes to you and then that part's
Yeah.
done.
So we're gonna put that together for you. So if you're like, what mallets? Ben just gave you the answer. We're gonna make it available at the Ohm store. We're not gonna. It's gonna be like the perfect coordination where we have taken one thing entirely off the table. With
Yeah.
gongs, you still have options, as Ben said. You know, you can be looking at the silver nickel style. You can be looking at the wind style. You can be looking at the chow style. You could not recommend to be looking at a nipple gong and the others. But for the most part, those are like the high level stuff. There's a
Yeah.
couple of gongs to explore, 24 to 34 inches in diameter. We've got the mallet bundle ready to go for you. Um,
Now you don't have to get those mallets, but I don't know
yeah,
why you wouldn't. They're incredibly well designed and the price point is insane. Like the value on this bundle
yeah,
is ridiculous.
yeah.
And I will say though, as far as fostering or borrowing, if you're to borrow something, borrow the instrument. I would not borrow mallets. Mallets are so
Uh,
personal and it feels personal. And like, if anything, you want to have the mallets and go to the instrument, you know? And that might be something you do too. Maybe you don't purchase something right away, but you go and travel to a yoga studio for the afternoon and practice and record there, and you bring your mallets home with you. But the mallets, I would own mallets.
yes. And then even like Ben mentioned a lot of opportunities of finding fostering. I've had Carol, a sound school student, reach out to us, and she told me that she just like discovered that her brother-in-law had a chow gong and is fostering that. So there's like, there's really, if you're not ready to get a gong, you don't have to rush out, join Gong School, and then be like, oh my gosh, now there's a clock ticking and I have to go and like buy an expensive gong, you have time. It's okay. If you find a gong and you're like, oh, this is like a chill gong and I love it and the price point works for me and it's like within the parameters of what Ben is suggesting, then go for it. But I just want to, again, from our experience with Sound School, people become very interested in like the progression and joining the course, and then they have that they feel a lot of pressure to like get the instruments. And so what we're aiming to communicate to you here is that you don't have to feel the pressure. First off, we decided to have kind of an extended enrollment period to relieve that pressure, right? So if you imagine enrollment starts tomorrow, June 25th, and like course begins July 14th, you already have like built-in flexibility there. And then what Ben just said, we can foster gongs, we can use a pillow for the week, and we're all of a sudden now like 30 days away, and knowing there that we can borrow one, we can make a post on Facebook and say, hey, who of you, my friends and family, secretly has a gong and might I, foster it? So we just I don't want you to feel an undue pressure to rush out and do something. It will be okay. And what we maybe haven't mentioned is like, of course, you get lifetime access to this stuff, right? So we move through the reason that we move through as a group over 7 weeks, right, where we kind of have a linear progression and we're all going at roughly the same speed, is that frankly, I'm a big fan of repeating ad nauseum the idea of like Parkinson's law, which is it relates to gas as it expands to fill the size of a container, but I often use it to describe basically everything in life where like whatever amount of time or space you give to something, it will fill that size container. And so if we say that Gong School is 7 weeks, it will take 7 weeks. And actually, I would purport, or I would propose that if we say it takes 7 weeks, it's actually going to take you 10 weeks. If we say it takes 10 weeks, it will actually take you 13 weeks. And so we put this out there because the curriculum has been designed by Ben as an expert in learning and progress, that this is like the rough period of time where we are on our edge, right? A little bit learning something new, maybe like slightly uncomfortable, but we're also progressing at a rate that is completely manageable. And so lifetime access. What I mean is like if you fall a week or two or three behind, it's okay. You'll easily be able to pick up. And so that's also not something to create undue stress or pressure on yourself for. Oh, you've already got like a week vacation planned at the end of July. That's perfect. We built things to accommodate for that. It's not like you can do that in spite of having that vacation. We expect that as mature adults, we're all living our lives, taking holidays, getting sick, hopefully not too sick, but just like having life events, and that's okay. Um, and so, okay, with all of that to say, we are going to open Gong School tomorrow for enrollment, June 25th. You'll get an email about it if you're on the wait list. But if you're not on the wait list, you can still do so if you'd like. The benefit to the wait list is solely that you get the email reminder from us tomorrow when enrollment is open. And so if it sounds appealing to you to just get the email to know when enrollment is open, then I put the link in there. You can go there, you can put your name and email address, and then that will unlock for you the ability to know when enrollment is open. And also on that page, we placed a bunch of lovely informational videos that Ben made, and we talk about the curriculum, and then that page will transform magically tomorrow morning into the page where you can enroll, and there will be more videos and more information to explore if you're still looking to kind of dig in a little bit. And then, of course, the invitation is always open to you to email us, and we will just take care of you. Again, I get on the phone with people, because some people just prefer to have a conversation when they have pointed questions, and I am available for that. And we always start in email, because then I'll be like, hey, give me your number, and then you'll be like, oh my gosh, this dude's really calling me. But I would love to do that. Okay. So Ben, we are going tomorrow, of course. there's space, everybody. So you can enroll tomorrow, and also there's space. Um, we've got your back. If you need to have a conversation, if you have to have a think, it's all good. We're thinking we're going to go through with a wonderful cohort of people, a wonderful group of teachers and guest lecturers. We are going to take care of each other. We are going to take care of you. We are going to have some fun. And if this sounds like a wonderful summer project, then we'd love to have you. And then, of course, if you're like, oh, I got a trip. I'm going to the south of France for 4 weeks. We're likely going to do Gong School again in 2026. So it's all cool. Okay.
I'll be in
Uh,
touch.
we have two winners to announce, Ben.
Great. Who are our winners?
Okay, so I'm going to announce our winners. So we have two. I promised that I would tell the story. Um,
Right.
the story is, well, I'm not going to go on since we're over. Basically, we have been doing a giveaway every single week since like 2021, I think. So I think we've awarded like maybe 200 free singing bowls. And last week, for the first week ever, when Stephanie was coordinating with our randomly selected winner, the winner actually said, like, out of the bowls here, I don't want to select any of them. And so I like give back my winning. And so that I probably promised a cooler story than that. But the reason we have two winners today is because for the first time in like over 200 winners, a winner said, I'm going to pass on this and likely buy a more expensive bowl instead of welcoming in my free bowl. And so I just want to say, like, if you win and for whatever reason, like one of the 6 to 10 bowls that are available to you aren't resonant, or you happen to have like those like that range of bowl in your collection already, and you're not interested in just like accumulation for the sake of accumulation, you can always say like, I want to give my thing to this person. Or it's kind of like a pay it forward scenario. You can do with it what you want, even if it's not having it sent to your house. Okay, so with that said, we are all now the recipient of an extra chance to win this week. And so our two winners are Cheryl Bade, SHERYL, Cheryl Bade, Bade. Cheryl is one winner. And up next, Anna Lynn Law, which seems like a super cool name. ANNALYNLAWE, Anna Lynn Law. That is a cool name. I've decided.
This is
Cheryl Bade
great.
is also two exceptional names. I'm a huge fan. And Cheryl Bade and Anna Lynn Law will each be able to select a bowl of their choice from the Ohm store valued at up to $315, which is like a pretty wide collection of handmade bronze singing bowls. And you have aesthetic options, meaning we've got like the tiger eye style, we have the polished bronze style, we have some with artistic flourishes if you'd like something that's a bit more standoutish. And so those are our two winners. And with that, we will conclude um, tomorrow. Gong School enrollment opens. Please reach out to us. We'd love to support you if we can. And Ben, thank you so much for being here again, the third time in a couple of weeks, and for the start of something new. I think I had a lot of fun today. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, you're welcome. You owe me. I mean, it's very difficult to sit here and talk about gongs for an hour. It's so painful. Yeah, no, it's great. No, I'm
Yeah.
excited to see everyone.
Um,
No, it's great. Thank you
but
so much.
yeah, yes, this was great. This was great. Thank you, Ben. We will see you very soon. Everyone that joined us live, thank you so much for your energy, enthusiasm, questions, for being here. It's a pleasure to do this. So, okay, with that, we will see you all next week, and we'll see you in email or however, if we can support you. Bye, everyone. Bye, Ben.